One of the key characteristics of this contemporary period we're living through at the moment, I think, is change. We take it for granted, but it seems like at the core of various modern ideologies and also the direction of the culture being steered by both our media and elite class and producers of entertainment and our educators, our academics, there is this fixation on change. And it's interesting because we've been conditioned, I speak as a millennial, but Zoomers too, we've been conditioned to think that change is good. I mean, you look at Barack Obama's first big presidential campaign, he was running on change. I mean, it's amusing to me to look back and think, you know, what does that mean? Why is change in and of itself good? Well, I don't think it is. I think change is just a synonym for chaos. And you can have chaos that you can build from, right? As in the Hegelian dialectic, problem, reaction, solution. Most of the sweeping societal and cultural changes that have happened over the last 100 years, they always come from a kind of manufactured chaos in a way. I mean, the chaos of World War II brought with it a completely new paradigm in the West, new opportunities, new problems. And the thing about it is that, you know, we've been lied to and told that as long as we're in a state of change, we're progressing towards something better, right? And what is progressivism, if not that notion? And you can see it everywhere, not just the video game industry, which I talk a lot about, the fact that the video game industry has changed to the degree where it's no longer even recognizable and it doesn't embody the same ethos it used to, you know, turning off people like me that have been around, that have been witnessing this, right? Whereas the next generation, they're just born into this revolutionary landscape, you know, the new version of culture, new version of society. People are thrown into the timeline of history, and change is inevitable. There's no solid ground. You never have an opportunity to get comfortable in this modern era. It's that stability and definitive concepts of what's right, what's wrong, what's true, what's not. The media especially works overtime in manufacturing an atmosphere of total chaos. There's always a crisis happening. In fact, we're just hopping from one crisis to the next. And what are the results of that? Well, no one ever has the opportunity to be comfortable. Communities never have the opportunity to take root in a truly positive and constructive way. And if they do, well, they're stamped out as quickly as possible, as we've seen multiple times, including what happened with gaming. Order can never be established, right? Because everything is in a constant state of flux. I mean, this is psychological warfare. Everything that was once solid is now chaos. To the point where we can't even now agree that, you know, a man is a man and a woman is a woman, because change is good. So this bizarre, incoherent gender ideology, sponsored by every giant corporation for some reason, it's good because it's change. Shifting from a traditional free market capitalist system to whatever this modern neo-Marxist bugman, live in the pod, Klaus Schwab, Great Reset, that's good. The persecution and disenfranchisement of white people in favor of outright hate and just a cultural atmosphere of racism towards white people. I hate using the term racism too, because again, that's like a Trotskyite term. It's an anti-white term to begin with. But, you know, we're supposed to look the other way when racial minorities in the West openly hate on white people because of some kind of sins of the father. Oh, the sin of being white is unforgivable, right? And, you know, we're turning around and going, excuse me, I thought we were individuals here, but you have ethno-nationalist black people, ethno-nationalist Jews, ethno-nationalist Asians. But white people are denied both an individual perception of the world, and they're also denied group identity. So we are just nothing, right? We've been denied all avenues of identity, except for this negative label of white. And that's acceptable, that's fine, right? Because if you're a postmodern bugman, yeah, I mean, this is evidence of change. It's evidence of the old order being inverted. It's not enough just to move beyond concepts of race, right? Like as America attempted to do in the 90s. Not saying it's realistic, right? But, you know, like, sorry, we're not individuals anymore. That's the thing. Where once we were simply a group of mixed ethnic individuals within America, pursuing our self-interest, right? That was supposed to be the libertarian Ayn Rand, Andrew Ryan-esque utopia. That was the American post-war liberal order. But instead, no. Of course, we progressed beyond that now. Modern American society is a bunch of kind of unified political groups, this loose coalition, organized via this racial self-interest, versus an atomized European diaspora, which are denied positive identity. So they can't organize, they can't understand themselves at all. They exist primarily as this kind of like loathed underclass, this tax cattle, especially the middle class. What's left of them. This is the result of US intersectionalism, and we're importing it over here in the UK, and it's all over Europe now. This is the change that apparently we're all supposed to be celebrating. Right, okay, thanks, Obama. And make sure you remember, it doesn't matter what the context is, white equals bad. American Racial Marxism 101, right? And because Mr. Sheckelstein, Dr. Sheckelstein from Berkeley, is saying that that's true, well, it's true because authority is always correct, as long as that authority is part of this woke establishment. When the progressive agitators are not in power, counterculture is legitimate, and we have to speak out and have protests, and censorship is bad, like, excuse me, we shouldn't have censorship, right? But the minute we get in power, party's over, boomers. It's 1984. Total censorship. Everyone that disagrees with us must be shut down. Counterculture isn't legitimate. Our current regime here in the West has no tolerance for counterculture, to the point where they use the full brunt of the media to quell any kind of meme-infused grassroots counterculture. It all has to be squashed. Jordan Peterson is a Nazi, deplorable. Trump is a Nazi. Everything is a smear campaign right now. And Russell Brand is now like a right-wing conspiracy theorist. Why? Well, he decided to look into things, Bad move. That's what happens when you're at odds with the status quo. If you're in favor of the status quo, you have certain perks that are allowed to you, especially as a journalist, especially as an entertainer. You have huge incentives to toe this line. And it's funny because the establishment, their agenda is chaos, right? Their agenda is to manage this change. It's constant. It never stops, and it keeps going. And right now, I think the transgender debate and the clash between the TERFs and, the trans community, this is the battleground right now. Things have shifted so far into this progressive realm that now women are losing the argument that they, in fact, exist. The controversy behind the definition of what a woman is, it's a perfect snapshot of where we are as a culture and how demoralized we are, how far we've fallen. Because it's really just about chaos. Like, they're creating chaos, and they are taking over. Introduce chaos into the system, take power. That's all that's happening. And our guys, based gamers, we just want things to be good, right? We don't want to persecute anybody. We want everyone to have an individual shot at success and happiness. We're saying, excuse me, lunatics, instead of destroying the world, how about we just opt for pragmatism? But that's not the discussion that we're actually having here, okay? What we're doing is we're kind of getting owned by agents of chaos that's just, they seek our destruction, that's it. It's blood libel. And for them, it's really not even about the actual kind of activist part, it's the joy of destroying something for them. They like the fact that they can be evil, and morally they don't suffer at all. There's no consequences. There's no punishment. In fact, they're being cheered on by a subversive academic media class going, yeah, you really inflict that change on these people in society, these oppressors, right? We have to change them. We have to change them from alive to dead, if necessary. Because if we don't do it, then they'll do it to us. There's like this projection happening where these sickos, they think that our guys are just as twisted as them. Now, really what we want to do is we want to get away from you. We want you to leave us alone and allow us to create beautiful things in peace and actually have a cohesive, functioning society. That's what we'd really like. And the only thing stopping us from achieving that is you guys, right? You chaos cultists, obsessed with tearing down everything that we valued, right? Well, you've done it. Congratulations. I think if anything, over the last 2 years, I've kind of accepted that, no, there really is nothing left to save here. You know, on this channel, I've been fixating on the video game industry, but one of the things I like to point out constantly and autistically is that this culture of change is not specific to the video game industry. It's everything. It's everything, and it's for the sake of itself, and it is absolutely not organic. You see the natural kind of reaction to this from normal people in society who are not hooked into whatever the insiders are, right? Because the wokies feel like if they are the agents of change, they'll be rewarded in the future somehow. As if they'll be kept around to experience this utopia that they're ushering in, you know, this conceptual utopia that is completely a fantasy and totally unrealistic, but still, it's such a tantalizing promise of power. It's that in the new order, you, the lowest of the low, the belch detritus of society, that you will be an elite in the new utopia. That's why you should be down for change, because in the current paradigm, you're nothing but a loser, right? So that is the devil's gambit being played here, and it's a deal offered to every kind of spiteful mutant within our society. It's that for them, it's an opportunity to tear everything down and recreate everything from the ground up. And it's going to be better. We're going to recreate the concept of what it is to be a human being. We're going to redefine what it is to be good and evil. Or maybe those things don't even exist. We don't even need a duality anymore. There doesn't have to be anything except this one kind of gray, immoral pleroma of pause. And, you know, there's no solid identity within there either. Identity itself is a kind of a commodity that can be purchased outright, like cosmetic DLC in an MMO. That is the modern clown world conception of identity. It's, you are simultaneously everything and nothing. And maybe, you know, purchased with what? I mean, I don't even know. Your soul? I mean, we're heading towards a future where money is kind of meaningless. I mean, it's that everyone is poor. Everyone will be poor. They will live in the pod, they will eat the bugs, and they will swap out and pick and choose from different identities that are kind of presented as another aspect of consumerism. And there's kind of like a natural disgust reaction I get from this, because I think human beings are born moral. I think that ultimately children know right from wrong, and it takes a combination of parental neglect and television, a Marxist professor, and years of brainwashing to kind of just bleach that out of people's consciousness. But the fact is, I mean, you see these small acts of resistance happening throughout the last, I guess the last decade has been very, very volatile in terms of this societal cohesion, because you have normal people that they're not down with this change. They like how things used to be, and for people like us, we're just scrambling to preserve something from our childhoods and from our past that we value and we always valued. And now we're being told from every single angle here that that's immoral, that we're not allowed to value things from our traditional history, even if it's just the last 20 years of video games. You have these little cracks in the system where everything's supposed to be better, right? You know, more transgenderism is better. More diversity is superior. Less definitive identity and less history and less tradition is good, right? Because it's change. And then, you know, FromSoft releases Elden Ring, and it's this like, it's almost a fetishization of Western mythology, right? You know, it's this highly archetypal, aesthetic, there's elements of Celtic imagery there, and it's fantasy, and it's got some Tolkien going on. People in the world, they're so hungry for this, right? They just eat it up. And it's amusing because Elden Ring is controversial in that it is looking to the past for inspiration, both visually, both from a design point of view, but also from a game design point of view. It's a difficult, esoteric, uncompromising video game in the spirit of classic Japanese gaming. And God, I'm just amazed at how many Deerkin Discord types and Twitter just, like California, Silicon Valley douchebags that are just butthurt that Elden Ring would dare go against the usual pause that we get from our culture. As in America and Europe, our culture in its modern incarnation is just trash. And why is it trash? Because it can't admit that anything from the previous order, the previous paradigms that we've lived through is worth preserving. Nothing is worth preserving, right? Nothing. Not even the most basic conceptions of masculinity, gender, history, traditionalism. It's all just, throw it all away. Throw it all away, it's in the trash, because change is always virtuous. And even when it comes down to a stupid thing like fucking video games, we can't even admit that, oh, look, FromSoft made an old school ARPG that kind of mixed with a Skyrim vibe, and it's actually legitimately a decent game. This is just, again, Japan being problematic, isn't it? It's that, the idea that Miyazaki is just an old school gamer at heart, and he's just giving us what he would want to play, and that happens to be exactly what I want to play, and it's like Miyazaki trolling the Western video game industry, going, look, here's all you have to do to sell a huge amount of copies. Just actually make a decent game. Actually listen to gamers for a change. And if they're enjoying your stuff, give them more of it. But at the same time, too, it's like Miyazaki is using the open world formula that so many Western devs are they're regurgitating this cookie cutter garbage, this Ubisoft formulaic crap, right? And then Miyazaki's going, okay, oh yeah, you guys are so into open world games. Here, let me give that a try. I'm going to actually put some effort into it. Shocking strategy, I know. Zero bullshit monetization, zero shoehorned political garbage. You can see why these Western video game devs are so rattled by the success of this game. Based Miyazaki, he's just really, he's holding a mirror to the Western video game industry and showing them they are the problem. They've been spending so long wallowing in this narrative that it's the gamer's problem. Gamers, by buying Elden Ring and making it sell absolutely amazingly, the gamers are proving that they're just that much lower, right? There they go, making the wrong choices again. The inability to self-reflect, again, it's a symptom of narcissism, funnily enough, right? But all these Twitter blue-haired retards that call themselves video game developers, they are not going to learn anything substantive from this event, and I don't think the producers and the money in the Western industry are going to even let other studios try and fill that void. Because FromSoft are proving that there's a demand for old school, decent video games that aren't politicized, right? There's actual appetite. And just like facing up to this reality, like for a lot of these Twitter types is simply too painful, because that would kind of mean that, the change that occurred within this industry is actually kind of a negative and no one's really enjoying it. We'd rather just go back to when things were really functioning and people were happy. I'm starting to see cultural parallels here with how a lot of disenfranchised millennial men feel politically. This incessant, unyielding change is just fucking everything up, to the point where a little Japanese man in Tokyo producing this, it's just a decent open world RPG. It's like earth-shattering for the egos of Western game devs who are almost incensed. How dare someone actually cater to the tastes of the straight white male gamer? It's a travesty. You can't look back and feel nostalgic feelings about the way things used to be, right? Because that makes you fucking Hitler, apparently. And if anything, the video game industry is in our 1930s Weimar kind of stage, and that would make Miyazaki literally Hitler.